Don't know if we're live. I think we're live. I've just done a 7-minute recording in private while we were testing. So yeah, I was just queuing up a video for you guys to have a look at with regard to rocket stoves, but this live Q&A is really just about anything, you know. We can chat about anything, or I'll answer questions about anything. So if you're there, say hello. So I'm not talking to myself. Hello Charlotte from Lancaster. How are you doing? It's like the Starship Enterprise, this. Boldly going beyond. Hey Rick, how you doing, buddy? We've kind of got it all set up, I think, hopefully. I've got my whiteboard here, so I can do fizzy diagrams and sketches if I need to. There's kind of a big lag on what my camera records and what YouTube shows, so I'm kind of just watching the camera footage as it comes out of the camera. So I think there's a 20-second lag between it actually going onto YouTube, so it's a bit disjointed at the moment, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. It's lousy weather here, Rick. Absolutely horrendous, mate. Today has been about 7 hours of rain, probably 8 hours of rain. The garden's totally flooded. My lawn is like a swamp. It is cold. There's minuses last night. Everything was frozen solid. Hi Andrew, you okay, mate? Can I explain more about running coal? Yeah, I can. I've obviously burnt coal in conventional fires, you know, because I've kind of always had a coal fire in every house I've had, and the only kind of drawback to coal is the stinking mess it makes coming out the chimney and the cost of coal. You're talking now in the UK, a bag of coal approaching £20 a bag. It's a lot of money, you know, and I can remember when I was solely burning coal, and it was a lot cheaper then, and you're talking probably burning 2 to 3 bags of coal a week to heat your house. So at £60 a week, it's not really feasible, you know. Hi Andrew from Bristol. Yeah, so there's a guy across the road he's bought a house. He's going to renovate it. There was an old coal bunker there, and he says, do you want any coal? So I literally just got a wheelbarrow full of coal, mainly to burn in the wood burner in the house, but I thought I'll try it in my rocket stove, so we put it in there. Now I will say that if you're gonna burn coal in a rocket stove, you're gonna need to have it hot before you light the coal, or you're just gonna get another stinking mess up the chimney, and you're probably going to really crap up the inside of your stove as well, your riser, your flue, everything. So I waited until I'd had a fire in it for maybe 30 minutes. I'd burnt, you know, probably half a bucket full of logs. The firebox was nice and hot, and then I put literally about three handfuls of coal in, about that much. Just dumped it in. It started burning. Initially there was a little smoke coming out the chimney, not much, but when the coal actually started burning, God, that fire was hot, and the flue was burning absolutely clean, and it was actually wafting towards me, the flue gases. So I did have a smell, and it just didn't smell of anything whatsoever, but the stove was extremely hot. And I was burning it full open on secondary air and primary air. But looking, if you saw the picture, which I'll put that screen on now, that was kind of the riser tube at that point. and when you look at the temperatures involved in there, that's the temperature at the bottom there, you'd probably melt brass if you put a crucible in that. And the whole riser, although it doesn't really show on the camera, was glowing from the bottom to the top. Obviously hotter in the bottom where the combustion's going on, but the whole firebox was like that. The stove was just throbbing with heat, and I think if you was going to burn coal, although I'm confident that the riser could handle it, all the metal work that's subjected to the flame would just be eaten away. Yeah, it would just corrode. I think you'd need a good thickness of steel on your rocket stove to burn coal. So hope that helps, guys. Hi Stephen from Brighouse, how you doing, mate? I have got quite a few questions kind of queued up that people have asked me, so I thought I would maybe answer some of them. And Sohan Jones asked me a few weeks ago now if I have any advice as to how to regulate a rocket stove. If you have any advice as to how to regulate a rocket stove, and I'm presuming you mean maintaining temperatures. He says he's got a collection of a load of propane tanks and he's hoping to do a build. Well, how can I explain this? You need to build a rocket stove that suits the environment it's going in. It's no good building a tiny little rocket stove and expecting that to heat, you know, a huge space. Because to get it to heat that space, you're going to have it running flat out all the time, you know, and for a long time. And with this last build I did, I realised that, and that is why the exchanger on this stove is so big, because that exchanger is effectively, if you work out the dimensions of the steel, it's effectively a radiator that's maybe, I don't know, what will it be, 2, 4, 6, maybe 8 or 10 foot by 5 foot. So it's like having a 10 by, you know, an 8, 10 by 5 foot radiator on the wall that's punching out 300 degrees centigrade, or say average out about 250 centigrade. So you don't need that running a long time to warm the shop up. And with that riser being refractory, it stores a tremendous amount of heat, that riser tube. So long after the fire's gone out, and I shut all the air down so that I'm not allowing any air to flow through the stove and out the flue. So the only place the air can escape, or the heat can escape, is then through the exchanger from the riser. So the actual exchanger continues to give off heat long after the fire's gone out. Hi Rick, do you need a full-size vertical chimney that vents above the roof line for rocket stoves, or can you get away with a simple horizontal exhaust out of the side of your shop? Yeah, you could, Rick, but the only trouble is, mate, I did on one of the first rocket stoves I made, I literally had the flue coming out of the wall, and the only problem was that with the wind will blow straight into the end of it, you know, and it'll cause blowback on the stove. They do seem to prefer some kind of vertical flue to just get it above the roof line. The flue on my shop, as you can see, only sticks out the roof probably about 14-15 inches, and that's enough. And it does take a twist behind the bench. But yeah, I think they need some kind of vertical lift just to stop the wind blowing back in, you know. Hi Stephen. Hi Peter. Rick says, can you share the story about the shed on your main channel, Art? Yeah, well, I had it in mind at one point to change my channel name. I was going to call it something like Projects in the Shed. So that was a bit of dry humour. That was meant to be my shed that I was working in. So I found that picture and I shoved it on there, and then I think it was about the same time I was asking people if I should change my ppotty1 name, and everyone said no, don't change it because we won't be able to find your videos then. So I kind of not bothered, but I'm really on the ball, me, with updating things, you know. So that shed picture's been up there a good 3 or 4 years. And the guys here asking about pigeons. Can I make a video on how you clean your pigeon lofts? Peter says. It's just, yeah, I could, Peter, but like, it's so simple, mate, because you know the V perches I've got, I literally just get a scraper and scrape them down. The cage floors are all wire mesh. There's one of them is an inch wire weld mesh, and the other's 1/2 inch weld mesh, and anything you scrape off the perches just falls through the mesh into the tray below, and then I literally just pull the tray out and scrape the tray into a sealed box that is underneath the kit boxes, so all the muck kind of goes in there, and then as the box is full, I usually use the muck on the garden because it's absolutely fantastic. It's rich in nitrogen and phosphates, and the garden's healthy as hell, you know, grows great vegetables. All my trees and shrubs around the garden are healthy with it. So that's what I do with it, mate. How can I buy a bird from you, says Peter. I don't have any to sell, Peter. I only kind of have birds to sell when I'm breeding, and this year I bred, how many did I breed? Did I breed 10? 8 or 10, I can't actually remember. And I mainly bred them to recover losses from birds that had got lost, and birds that had been taken by the falcon or the peregrine or the goddamn sparrowhawk, which continues to deplete my numbers. So I did intend to kind of give a couple of birds away, but this year has been so bad for flying roller pigeons. It's been absolutely horrendous, and it still continues now. The birds probably haven't been out for a month, and once they're locked down for a long time, they do get lazy and they don't want to fly. And really, I can't let them fly because the weather's so bad. I'm right on the northwest coast of England. I'm literally a mile from the sea, my house, and there's always a strong westerly wind, a strong northwesterly wind blowing all the time. So it's really bad for roller pigeon flying. Hi Mike, how are you doing, buddy? Nice to see you, mate. I was going to have a couple of knives. I'm actually doing this in the house because I've no Wi-Fi signal up in the workshop. The workshop's maybe, what is it? It'll be maybe 100 feet from the house, the workshop. So although I've got electricity up there, I've no Wi-Fi signal. I've no connection to the internet up there. So we're doing this in the house, and my son came last night and he found out that my very clever Sony camera has got its own built-in Wi-Fi, so it can news to me, my camera is actually streaming itself, this picture, through the Wi-Fi system straight to my computer. It's just totally way above my head. So that's what's going on at the moment. So the camera's kind of doing everything. I'm sat here like a muppet answering questions. I've had a stinking cold this week. We went down to London, me and my girlfriend, last Sunday for a party, a friend of mine's party. God, I thought it was cold here, but London, my God, we got frozen solid walking around London. So I'm kind of been swallowing glass this week. hopefully get rid of it. But questions. I'm kind of getting a bit lost here. Where am I on? Yeah, that's a common thing people ask me about, the secondary air feed on rocket stoves. This guy Andrew said, I'm sure Andrew's just asked a question, hasn't he? Hi, yeah. Yes, Andrew from Bristol. Yes, he says, would it be worth bringing the secondary air in from the top of the stove, you know, to further preheat it? And I know what he means, but you've got to remember that if you're feeding air into a riser, you really need the inlet for the riser, for the inlet, sorry, for the air feed to be below the exit point, because if you're heating a tube inside there with hot air, the air is constantly going to be trying to get out the highest point, because obviously hot air is rising and pushing upwards. So if your feed is at the top and you want to spiral it down into the bottom of the riser, all that's going to happen is the riser, the inlet, it will actually become an outlet, and so it will draw air from the riser and it will exit out your inlet. So no, you can't really do that. I do think that there's probably some degree of imbalance that would be acceptable, but maybe say 6, 7, 8 inches, where you could spiral it around the base of the riser tube and have it, you know, dropping down maybe 4 inches. I think that will probably do, but no, not to any great degree, I don't think. Steve, I'm building a shed workshop this year, 12 foot by 18 foot, unwanted, heating hot water, intending to complete a small simple stainless rocket stove. I started, but how to use it to heat 2 or 3 gallons of water, that's pretty easy, that, mate, actually. I would, you know, with these rocket stoves, I went through all the kind of processes of figuring out how to heat water in them, and there's a couple of ways really. Probably the most simple and effective way is to actually wrap a copper pipe around the outside of the riser, and I wouldn't put anything inside the riser. I just wouldn't, because it's gonna choke it up and it's gonna mess things up. You want to go outside the riser, because be it a refractory riser or a steel riser, when that thing's getting up to temperature, it's going to be more than hot enough to heat water. You know, you're going to be producing steam. It does get that hot. So I would coil a copper pipe. I would bring it in at the bottom. I would coil it around the riser, and I would take it out the top. So I'd have a flow and return. You need it on an open system. You can't seal this system in, or you're going to create a bomb, obviously. So you literally want a header tank above your stove, with the cold going in at the bottom. As the water heats, it will circulate up the pipe, and it kind of creates a flow, and that will heat your water. Then all you really need, but you need an open tank, remember that, or a vented tank, and then all you need is some means of drawing the water off that tank. Then it would be handy to have, say, a ball cock in the tank, so that as the water level drops, as you remove it, you know, the ball cock drops and replenishes the water in the tank, and that would work really good. The other option I have actually thought of is if I could find a really small old style radiator, house heating radiator, you know, a really slim one, say a single convector with one panel. If you made your exchanger big enough, you could drop that into the rocket stove, and you could bring the feed in the bottom and take the return off the top of the radiator, and that will make a really good heating panel. and that could just be, you could put one of them on each side of the exchanger. And if I was going to do it with my stove, that's probably what I would try actually. So that's what I would do anyway, mate. Peter asks, how do you protect your pigeons from the varmints? Well, yeah, the only real problem are sort of cats really, but the cats can't, all the cats can do is walk on the roof. They can't actually get into the boxes because the boxes don't touch the ground. There's 3 or 4 foot beneath them. The mice can't get in it because obviously they've got to walk up a vertical wall and then try and figure out some way of walking underneath the box and then walking up the front and going in through the bars. So mice can't get in. I do get 1 or 2 slugs and snails in the summer wandering around the boxes, and when it's hot they kind of go into the boxes to drink the water out the drinkers, but not too many, to be honest with you. I do put slug pellets around underneath the kit boxes, and that kind of gets rid of them usually. Where are we up to? Hi Robert McPherson. He says he really enjoys your katana videos and the photo negative amount. Do you still planned on W2? Hamon, right, and the Hamon, yeah. Yeah, I've got another katana to make, Robert. It's been on order now about 2 months and I still haven't started it. And that katana I'm actually going to forge out of W2. And the first one I made was spring steel. Don't know what it was. I wasn't expecting to get any Hamon. It's not a true Hamon, but it's a beautiful effect from the clay, from claying the steel. But the actual Hamon that will come out on the W2 katana I'm going to forge, I'm expecting it to be just spectacular. Whether it will be or not is another matter. But I've done enough kind of work with W2 now and producing Hamons to know sort of how the Hamon appears and how to get the Hamon to appear. It's kind of a real black art producing Hamons in steel, and you think just as you think you've got it nailed, it just turns around and bites you again. You know, and you just produce a crap Hamon. But generally, I kind of know what I'm doing now with Hamons. The last few I've done, the results have been really good. The Bowie, which I'm still working on, my big Bowie, the Hamon is just stunning on that. The camera really doesn't do it justice, you know. When you actually look at the thing, it's beautiful. It's like there's 2 different pieces of steel forged together with some magical white ashy line, you know, joining the 2 pieces. I just love Hamons, they're fantastic. People are always asking me about doing more pigeon videos. Yeah, but you got to understand, guys, you know, I love my pigeons, but for me, that I've got to have something to say about them. And you know, I just because there's a lot of people watch my channel for various things, you know, and if my only interest was pigeons, then I would probably do a hell of a lot more videos on my pigeons. But you know, I'm just so busy and there's so many things, and putting these videos on YouTube, it really does take time, you know. When you've got to do when you're filming, doing anything, everyone probably says the same thing. You're constantly switching the camera on and off, checking that stuff's in focus, you know, and the lighting's right, and then you start what you're doing, then you turn the camera on or off, and then you move the camera again, and then when all that is done and the filming, and if you're happy with all the filming, you then bring it to the editor and you can spend hours and hours and hours editing the footage down to get some good footage. Then you can spend 3 weeks trying to upload it to YouTube if your connection's bad. So with my pigeons, I don't really, I can't, it's just so boring to me to stand in front of my boxes with a camera and just look at my pigeons, because you know I see them every single day, and unless I've got something I think is interesting or I need to say about them, I don't bother. And pretty much I just feel that I've pretty much covered everything I need to cover for the most part on my pigeons. I've done breeding, I've done healthcare, and nothing has changed. There's every video I've done on my pigeons, I still continue exactly the same way with the way I look after them, fly them, train them, feed them, you know, everything. But I will do more pigeon videos. I'll do an update shortly, but the weather's garbage, they haven't been out, they're lazy, they're fat, they don't want to fly. So maybe I will, when I start them flying, it's going to be a month or two, I will maybe start filming that process and showing how I get the damn things back up again, you know. I hope that answers some of your questions on pigeons, because I get asked an awful lot, when are you doing more pigeon videos? What we got? Bear with me, chaps. So Rick's asking me, have you started your hydraulic press update? As yet, no, Rick. But what I've done, mate, I know all the bits I need now, and just per chance, a friend of mine who used to work for a buddy of mine left that job, and he now works for a company called Circuit Hydraulics, which is 10 miles away, about 8 or 9 miles away as the crow flies. And I've been to see him, and I said, look, I want to do this, I want to squash metal, I want 25 ton fast action, blah blah blah. He just said, yeah, no problem at all, we can do that, dead easy. I was like, oh, thank you. But he only works there, and he says, come back and see my boss. And he said, my boss will tell you everything you need. So he says he may have some, you know, old second-hand power packs here, he may have, you know, some hydraulic rams. He says, we'll have everything. He said, we can make you all the tubes, the pipes, the fittings. So all I need now is to gather a big chunk of money together and take it to Circuit Hydraulics and say, build me a press. I've actually got the steel. I've got some, I think it's 6-inch really heavy section RSJ. It's some old steel that was, again, it was a mate of mine's. It's come off a factory somewhere, and I've got about 20 foot of that in various sections. And when I've looked at hydraulic press builds, they always seem to use box section that's 15 inches by 6 inches, and it may just be, I just think it's a little bit of overkill, because the press I'm using now, you've seen it, is 25 ton. This new press will be 25 ton, and with the box section I'm going to use, I'll be upgrading what I'm using now substantially. So I think it will be fine. But again, I can, and it's the vertical, it's a vertical load, isn't it? So you're actually trying to stretch that RSJ. There's no side load going on the RSJ. It's all vertical. So I think as long as everything at the bottom and top between the ram is welded up good and solid, you know, it's going to be fine. That's my thinking anyway. But I'll check this out with the guys from the hydraulic place anyway, and if they tell me no, you're wrong, then I'll fair play, you know. I'll use the right steel, or I'll buy steel, you know. So going back through these questions, guys. When I've gone through all the will you make more pigeon videos comments. Pigeon bar, get lost, will you? Wade, yeah. Wade says he's going to use the middle section out of a forklift for the frame for his press. Yeah, that'd be strong as hell, that, mate. You know, God, them forklifts are built for abuse, aren't they? Broadshooter, did you choose to make the small rocket heater? I haven't made it yet, guys. I've been working on it in my heat, and like I said, I wanted to come up with something slightly different, and because that also ties in with a question that I was asked a while ago from Marco Nantel. And he said, he just said to me, how about a masterclass kind of video or series giving dimensions, details of refractory mix casting processes? Could you most likely use your existing vids and edit quite a bit together? Yeah, probably could. And he says, I would also like, as another commentator mentioned, to see your take on the new breed of riserless stoves. Kind of know what he means, but riserless stoves are kind of been going since day one, haven't they? All of it. I'm gonna do a diagram. I'm gonna do a diagram on the board behind me. So we have a rocket riser tube. Here we have him. And we have a bit of and I'm going to draw something now which is quite relevant actually to rocket stove dynamics. And we have a firebox. We need a bit more tube there for the stove, don't we? So simple J tube, be it round, square, whatever. Sticks go in here. Fire burns, rolls around and goes up riser tube. And if we're talking about riserless tubes, then really the tube creates some draw, but you can say the same thing happens with the actual flue that comes out of a rocket stove, right? The flue also creates draw, right? So you don't need a tube to create draw in a rocket stove because your flue does that. So if we took away the actual riser tube and we extended that feed to, say, a riser tube, and then we vented that just into an open exchanger, this area here is where you would create that heat, because that is all you're actually doing in your riser. You're creating a really hot atmosphere where it's actually superheated, so anything entering there, wood gas, any bits of carbon, the chemicals that come off wood that burn, it all burns in your riser because it's so hot it can't do anything else but burn. But if you create the same thing here in a tunnel, you're just actually turning the riser tube on its side. So this is my new take on the small stove I want to build, because obviously a riser tube has to be a certain height in order for it to function. That's if you're not, and I kind of lose track of what I'm talking about, but you just have to remind me if I do. But what was that? I've lost it already. But yeah, your riser tube needs to be a certain height, because if it's not, when you wrap an exchange around it, you won't get any draw on it, and it will burn dirty because the gases aren't inside there long enough for complete combustion. The actual unburnt gases will be spewing out the top of the riser tube and then going up your flue. And it really doesn't matter how much secondary air, tertiary air, whatever you try and inject into that riser tube, it still will not burn. As a minimum, you need about 14 to 15 inches of riser tube for complete combustion. But you couldn't have a very big firebox on that because you would easily overload it. Another thing about rocket stoves, the taller your riser tube, the more effective it will burn. So if you stick 3 56-gallon barrels on top of each other and you shove a 10-inch riser tube in there, man, that would create some heat and it would burn so clean, you know, there would be nothing coming out the top. But another thing I see on a lot of rocket stoves is, move, go away. I see the firebox, and then I see a long burn tunnel there, and then I see the riser tube, and people are saying, you know, my riser tube isn't getting that hot. Well, that's in effect because they've got this long tunnel here. This is now the riser tube because all the flame, all the combustion is going on there. And by the time it hits the riser tube, all they've actually got going up is heat. There's no combustion going on in this area. And what I also see is this section has got no insulation on it at all. So they don't insulate this. So this is shedding heat all the time from all 4 sides. So you'll never really get fantastic combustion, guys, unless you insulate these long tubes. If you did insulate these long tubes, it would become so hot in there that the gases would actually be forced out into there, and they would actually have to start burning in the riser tube then. So it moves everything along. The hotter you make this environment, everything gets moved along, you know, towards the riser, if that makes any sense. Where are we up to? That was from Brad Shooter. So, Brad Shooter. So, the small rocket stove, which I've got in my head, I'm just trying to think how I can draw this. What I want to build is just a very small box that will be maybe 15 inches high, like that, and the fire will be in this section here, and that will have a door on it, and this is where the fire will be. Internally, this is where all the action will happen, in this side here. So we literally just got a fire in that side of the box. I hope if someone's watching this, they build it before I do, because then I can just point everyone to their video. Right, so my plan is, as I said, to turn that riser on its side rather than sending it up. So this is where the fuel will be, in here. All this will be insulated. The back will be insulated, this side will be insulated, to create a really extremely hot environment inside there. There will be a gap, and then there will be a further wall down here, right, inside. So we put the fuel in here, the air supply will be here, and the air supply will probably be fed via tubes that run along the inside. So we're taking air from the back of the stove, we're bringing it through the firebox, and then we're re-injecting it at the front so that it's been preheated as it goes through. So all the gases are going in there, they're coming round here, and then they're going, and just this will be the heat exchanger. This be no tube in it, and we're looking down on this now. This will be the actual heat exchanger, and you'll just exchange the heat from this, but this whole box will be so hot it will actually be glowing. There will be a plate along the back, which I've showed on another stove because I've kind of already done this research already. There'll be a plate in the back that has a gap underneath it, so if we're looking at the box that way, there's our firebox, there's our tunnel that goes like that. Then we have a plate fixed at the top, there's a gap at the back of about, say, 2 inches, so the gas is coming in here, hot air is going to be stored in the top and the colder air is going to be pushed down and it's going to exit and go up the back of there, if that makes any sense, and either exit from the flue at the top of the stove, or you could put the flue on the back of the stove, if that makes any sense to anybody. It's in my head, I can see it perfectly, I can see it working, I've just got to make it, you know. Hi Prince Pendejo. Check my icon to see a few knives I made. I will do, mate. Yeah, I love looking at what the guys have made in the knife department and swords and any kind of tooling really. Pigeon Boy says, when you made pigeon breeding videos, what was the temperatures? What was the white temperature thing? Oh right. I think the first year I started in them boxes, I did have, because I was worried about the temperatures then because it was a real cold winter, so I actually had 2 heaters in the kit box, and I had a thermostat in there that when the temperature dropped below, I don't know what it was maybe 10 or 12 degrees centigrade, it would bring the heaters on. When the temperature came up to about 15, it would turn them off again. And it also had a timer, a light timer on there as well, because when it's going dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the pigeons still need to keep feeding the young, and if there is some light, it's obviously better because they can see the feed, they can get about the box and still feed the young. So that white temperature thing, which I think is what you mean, was actually a timer that brought the light on, that turned the light on at 4 p.m. and gradually it switched the light off. That's what that box was. It didn't just go ping on and then ping off, because if you do that, you're suddenly plunging the pigeons into total darkness. So what it kind of did, that box, it faded the light down ever so slowly, just kind of like natural light, and it brought the light on the same way, just brought it on gradually, and you could set it for a time period. And so I had the light fading out about, I think it was about 9 p.m. in the evening, and it just extended the feeding period for them. After that I didn't bother, because that was when I was breeding on early in the year, and since then I've really only bred my pigeons when the light is right, in the summertime, so I kind of bin that off. Hi Carlo. He just wanted to say good job on the videos. Thanks Carlo, I appreciate it, mate. And Phil in Dublin. I'm Broadshooter. Hi guys. Phil says he's losing a lot of heat out of the flue. And what would be the main cause? A bad vortex? ? No, it's more down to your exchanger really, Phil. Your exchanger isn't extracting enough heat, enough of the available heat that you're producing, and so your heat is exiting the flue, which is why this big daft stove I built in the workshop, it was built to accommodate that, because the exchanger was, I didn't want a round exchanger. I knew if I built it square it would have more surface area, and also thin steel or thin metal as an exchanger extracts heat much faster than thicker steel. Thicker steel acts as an insulator, so again it traps heat inside the exchanger. So the bigger your exchanger, irrelevant of what size your isotube is, it just gives more surface area to extract heat before it's pushed out through the system. That's really all it is, Phil, you know. Hi Mark, thanks mate, thanks for your comment, Mark Bowden. We've nearly been on, well, about 3/4 of an hour at the moment, something like that. I've kind of, I think, answered the questions I was going to answer, I wanted to answer. Scrolling down, scrolling up. Yeah, as I said, regarding the burning the coal video, when you look at that riser tube there, when you look how hot that is, because I get a lot of questions asked about refractory, the riser tube, and what it's actually made of. That riser tube was built from 1600 centigrade refractory mixture, and I bought it from, I think it was Castree Kilns in the UK. And before I bought it, because I'd never cast anything in refractory, so I rang the guy up and I asked him, and I told him what I was going to do, and he didn't really understand, but I said I'm going to try and cast a riser tube. I want it around 1 inch thick, maybe 2 inch maximum, but I only really want it 1 inch for the weight, and I also want to add perlite to it to lighten it and to make it more insulative rather than sucking heat, you know. So anyway, the guy told me I could do neither, and that, you know, 2-3 inches really was the minimum I could cast it in thickness, and if I used perlite it wouldn't work. So obviously I just ignored him and and I did it anyway, and you know, it worked out really good. And because the temperature it will go to is 1600 centigrade, I would estimate the temperature in there would probably melt brass. So whatever, just looking at the inside of my forges, you know, at the colours, so whatever temperature that is, that's the temperature in that riser tube from burning coal. And the only drawback I would say to burning coal is you're going to kill all your any exposed metalwork is going to be killed by the temperatures. So you'd need to be using cast steel, or, you know, really hellishly thick stainless to compensate. We're back, yeah, we're back. Hi Stephen from Brighouse, and hello Andrew from Bristol. Oh, sorry, I was scrolling back then, guys. Hey Big Dog, how you doing, mate? I love watching your vids, Big Dog, because you kind of like me. You like to really just see if things will work and if things will stick together, you know. And I love all that. I love experimenting, and I especially love it when someone tells me, no, you can't do that, it won't work, and then you do it. It's like a kind of a good challenge, isn't it? And you feel a bit good about that. But yeah, I'm gonna do a canister weld very shortly, mate. I've been saving up because I can't get steel powder here like you guys in the States can, you know, 1084 powder or whatever I've seen you using, forged in fire and this that and the other. So I've been saving all the chips from my bandsaw where I've been cutting up my carbon steel and mild steel, and I've been saving them, and I've washed them and cleaned them and heated them to get rid of any oil and anything else. And I've got a good half-baked bean till full of that, and I've got all the offcuts of steel in there. I've got some ball bearings, I've got some random stuff, bits of raw tie, and I'm going to throw the whole lot into a canister, smash it and see what comes out, buddy. And I was going to actually, I was actually talking to Rick Rabjohn, and saying that I'd like to do some kind of collaboration with you regarding forging or making a knife or something or other. And I was maybe thinking of doing some kind of series or some kind of mad series, like doing a 6-hour challenge, like, you know, a bit like a Forged in Fire thing. So I'll do the YouTube 6-hour knife making challenge or forging challenge or something, and see what we could kind of produce. I don't know. We'll see anyway, eh? But I enjoy doing the videos, and Tim at Big Dog knows, and Rick knows that people think, you know, you're earning tons, crap loads of money on YouTube. You're not. You don't get paid for what you do, and you've got to have a love for doing it, you know. And it's not kind of showing off and showing what you can do. It's kind of sharing your work and the things you do, because I work in isolation here. There's kind of no one around me who does anything that I do, so all my contacts and sources of information and things I love doing are all on YouTube, and the guys I follow and watch, you know. So that's why I do it, so I can reach out to other people and follow what they do, and they can follow what I do, and that's why I do it. And it certainly is not for the money we're not supposed to talk about the money we get, but believe me, if I built a wishing well in the road and people chuck pennies in, I'd probably earn more money off that wishing well than I do off YouTube. So yeah, it's not for the money, fellas. It's just for the love of doing it, you know. So Phil, I'm just trying to catch up with the comments, guys. I'm sorry if I've missed anybody. I answered that one off Phil. Where we're saying, Phil says he did manage to get the exchanges to around 500 degrees C. Well, that's good, that, mate. But yeah, to keep it there, you're gonna have to keep chucking wood in, mate. You know, big exchanges shed heat fast. So to keep the temperature at 500, you just have to keep banging wood in. You don't get nothing's free, mate. You don't get free heat, even from a rocket stove. In order to maintain a temperature, you need to shovel the wood in, you know. But I think the way rocket stoves kind of win over conventional stoves is that if you've got a cast riser, and the stove itself is producing mountains of heat. I know in my shop that after 3 or 4 hours, everything in the shop, all the metalwork, the benches, the machinery, the stone, the floor, the walls, everything is heated up so much that the shop will hold that heat for well into the evening, you know, into late evening. So Rick says, what do you use to coat your wood scales? I've been using 3 coats of Helmsman spar urethane. A lot of the timber, Rick, I actually stabilise it with resin. With that resin you guys in the States use, there's one called Stick Fast, there's another one called something else. And I dry the scales first, put them in the microwave so they're completely dry, no moisture in them whatsoever. Very quickly put them into a vacuum with the resin, suck all the air out of them, leave them in there for 24 hours, let the resin bleed off, and then it's heated up in a little toaster oven, and it sets the resin inside the timber. And that's when I do that, they kind of don't need any other finish on them, because when you've sanded them down to say 1200 and then you go in the micro meshes, the resin actually polishes on the surface. Sometimes if I'm using real claggy, holey pitted burls, I will sand them. I will sand them. I'll use the sanding residue mixed with epoxy, and then I will fill all the holes in the crevices and cracks in the wood. When that's dry, I'll sand it again, and then I'll usually give it 3 coats or 2 or 3 coats of gunstock oil, which has got dryers in it, so it's not like a natural oil that won't set. This oil sets, and that gunstock oil is the only oil I use on my handles, because it's not a glossy finish, it's not a matte finish, it's like a satin sheen on it, and it really brings the colours out the wood, you know. So there's some scales you can't resin stabilise, like oak. The resin just doesn't seem to go into them, and I'll kind of excuse me, I will usually put the handle into warm boiled linseed oil, and I will leave it there for a few hours and let the oil really soak in. Take it out, wipe it down, and let the oil bleed out of it, and then just keep buffing it and polishing it, and that's kind of all it needs, you know. So Stephen asks, what was your original background in some kind of engineering? No, I left school at 15 because I hated school, and I went into an apprenticeship as a vehicle bodybuilder, which was kind of high class joinery work really, you know, but building bodies on wagons out of timber framing. We used to build mobile libraries, stuff like that. It was all timber work, but whilst I was there I learned how to use fiberglass, I learned how to weld, and did a bit of work in the tin shop and learned a bit of electrical work, not much. I worked there for about 3 years, 2 to 3 years, because the place eventually just closed down because things were changing. That would have been in the 70s. And things were changing, the way vehicles were being built, so that shut down. I then kind of went into the building industry then, just property, you know, building, joinery, and I did that most of my adult life. And the things I do now are kind of just things I've wanted to do, hobbies: wood carving, wood turning, and metalworking. And I'd never really welded a piece of metal up to sort of 8 years ago. I had no interest in metal at all, but I don't know, I've kind of gone off working with wood now, and I'm more interested in working with steel and stoves. But I've always had the 3 main loves in my life have always been steel. Steel. 3 main loves in my life have been fishing, fire, quite a few things really. But yeah, I've always been interested in fire, I really have. And I guess that's from a kid. From being a kid, our only source of heating was a fire in the house. We had one fire in our house, and that was it, and that heated the whole house. So it's kind of always fascinated me. My father was an engineer, but I didn't really know my father that well. He died when I was sort of 9 or 10 years old, so I never really got to know what he did, although he was kind of a foreman at an engineering place where they used to do a lot of metal turning, and just a general engineering firm. But I don't think I've really picked that up from him, because as I say, I never really knew what he did. It's just something I've sort of fallen into, making knives and forging steel and Damascus and everything else that goes on with it, you know. Let's try and catch up with these comments, fellas. Okay, here we are. Andrew Harrison, what do you think would be the optimum thickness for a heat exchanger? I'm thinking of using 10mm. That's too thick, that, Andrew. As I've said, the thicker the steel, it will act as an insulator and trap the heat in. The actual body of the heat exchanger, it never really degrades. You can use something as thin as a 56-gallon barrel, and that would probably I'd stick my neck out and say it'll probably last you 10 years or perhaps it, you know, to infinity. So Big Dog Tim. Yeah, I absolutely agree, Tim. Yeah, we've got to do something, mate. That will be a challenge, because we both love a challenge. That's obvious. I will. I'll drop you an email, Tim. Definitely. Big Dog's had pneumonia. I've got something too. I don't know what the hell it is. As I've said before, went down to London in that swarming sea of humanity and picked up something that's been like swallowing glass for a week, so it's still with me. I just feel knackered. I've been wanting to do some Damascus this week, so to forge some Damascus out for a couple of orders I've got, and some San Mai, and to start forging the katana, but it's been so cold here. The temperatures are in the -C for a week. There's rain, there's a lot of wind, there's been some real strong winds, but I feel so weak and cold at the moment, and I figured probably the worst place I can be standing in front of a 1400 centigrade forge and pounding on a piece of metal while it's -2 all around me. So yeah, that's kind of not going to do me any good, that. Yeah, I was wondering, Tim, why you hadn't done any videos, mate, because I keep looking. I keep looking for a video. I only just noticed actually tonight that Rick's got another video up. I'm going to watch that later when I've finished doing this. One thing I will say, guys, is YouTube keeps changing all the time, you know, and they're not giving us notifications anymore, as many notifications. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Everything seems to be changing on here. So we're not. It's a long while since when people send me messages through YouTube. It's many years since they've actually notified us that we've got messages. So unless you check your messages within YouTube regularly, they just sit there, you know. So the only way now to get notifications, the only reliable way of getting notifications to someone you subscribe to, is to click the little bell, which is down, is it this side of the video? It's that side there. So there's a little bell down there underneath the videos, and I've had to go through all the people I'm subscribed to and sort of click that bell, and then YouTube will notify you when that person puts a video up. So there you go. Hi Wade, and hi there Steel Visions. How you doing, mate? Yeah, it's crazy weather here too, guys. It's just been torrential rain here all day. Last night it was frozen solid. I went out to the shop late on to get a few bits and pieces, and my windscreen wipers were stuck to the van. I couldn't get them off. When I eventually demisted my screen and scraped all the ice off, I couldn't get the van door open. The damn thing was frozen solid on the rubber. So yeah. Yeah, it's weird, Stephen Owens. Yeah, it's weird, mate. Like you say, I don't know what they're doing on YouTube at the moment, but the notifications aren't coming through on most things, you know. So I'm subscribed to quite a few channels, and when I go and look, you know, there's 3 or 4 videos there I haven't watched. Yeah, so as I was saying, it's my whole garden's flooded at the moment. My lawn is like a swamp because I think the ground underneath is frozen solid and the water can't get away. I hope it gets better because I live for warm weather. I hate this cold and I hate this rain and I hate this wind. So Steel Visions asked me how long I've been making knives and how did it get started. I think it's maybe 7 or 8 years, buddy. And it was so bizarre how I got started making knives, because before I started, as I said, I never really touched a piece of steel other than, say, welding up a trailer for my boat, and that's about the only steel work I'd done before this. And and the other passion is, that was the other passion I forgot to mention, motorbikes. I've loved motorbikes since I was sort of 8 or 9 years old, and I've still got a motorbike now. And I used to be on, or still am on, a motorbike forum, and I was just browsing through that one night, and a guy had put a post on where he'd made a knife out of a file. And just out of idle interest, I just went to have a look at it, you know, because he said he'd made a knife out of a Farrier's file, and I actually had some old Farrier's files, so it just sparked something. So I just, idle curiosity really, I just went to have a look, and he put some pictures on a forum called British Blades, because he was a member of that. So I went and looked at that, and I thought, wow, I didn't know you could make a knife out of a file. So I then probably spent 3 or 4 days going through the British Blades forum, looking at the knives, and started researching that, and it really got a hook into me, and that was it. And it's been a long learning curve ever since then, you know, wanting to make Damascus, wanting to just do everything, you know, that I see to do with steel and heat treating. And I wish I'd started it sort of when I was a lot younger, in my 20s and 30s, because God, it's something I really love doing. I've picked up a lot of things through my life that I've done, you know, things I've really got into, like wood carving and wood turning and boat building and just so many different things, you know, but they've never held my interest for very long. And I always just sort of fall out with them, but knife making, God, it's just really got a hook in me, you know, because there's just so many aspects to it, and just when you get good at something else, there's something else to do and try. So so Rick asked me, how can we help convince your neighbours that you need a power hammer? What we need to do, Rick, is we need to convince as a very wealthy individual or a bank to give me something like £500,000 so I can go and live in the middle of nowhere and build rocket stoves and make knives and do forging, and then it won't really matter, will it? And until that happens, I'm kind of stuck here, matey. Hello, Coolest Monkey. How you doing, mate? I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay here, guys. I'm just going to get a drink of water. One sec. Yeah. Just lubricate the glass in my throat a little bit. Well, I'm going to wrap it up shortly, fellas. it's been good. So if you have any more questions, please shove them on now, or I will love you and leave you all. First time I've done this, as I said, it's all a bit Starship Enterprise. There's the lithium crystals have all just been put in place and everything seems to be working. There's a lag on the camera, so we've somehow got round it all. So Carlo Mert, hi Carlo. Can you explain how to correctly prepare wood for wood scales? I'm interested to make a few knives. Yeah, you firstly, Carl, you've got to have the wood 100% dry, mate. And if you've just found the wood in a logs pile, you need to dry it properly. You can dry wood in a microwave, but you really need to do some research on that into the drying of wood in a microwave. The way to do it is to put the wood inside a plastic bag inside the microwave, because you don't want to dry the wood out too much, and you've got to kind of give it short bursts of 10 and 15 seconds. Drive the moisture out the wood, it will condense inside the bag. You then put it in a fresh bag and you keep doing that. It's a long-winded process. It's much easier to find the wood now and then store it. What I do, I store it inside cardboard boxes, cut it into short pieces, oversized pieces, put them in cardboard boxes, seal them up and just shove it away for 12 months, and that way it's not losing moisture too quickly. You'll get some cracking, some warping, some twisting, but it's usually on the surface that, and then once it's got rid of most of its moisture, I then have it I put it in a drying box which has just got a light bulb in it, and it's stacked up in there, and it's just a low temperature that slowly dries the timbers, you know. And then you can either, once it's gone through that process, you can then use the timber, you can oil the scales, or you can resin impregnate them with inside a vacuum. If you build a vacuum chamber, you can do it like that. There's a lot of videos on YouTube on how to resin stabilize timbers, so hope that helps you, buddy. Stephen Owens, so you do commissions on knives. What other jobs do you undertake? Okay, big dog, I'll see you later, buddy. Yeah, really, I'm at the moment, Stephen, I'm just making knives. I do little blacksmithing projects, just random things really. Knives, swords, kitchen knives, chef's knives. I've started doing some Damascus jewellery, with rings. The other work I do is I'm still kind of plugged into doing building work a little bit. I do building maintenance for a few people. My buddy's got a big company. He's an oil processor, so I kind of do a lot of the maintenance on his buildings and his yard. And he's also got a farm. I do quite a lot of bit of work around the farm on the buildings and helping out on there, you know, various things really. So between kind of everything I do, I somehow manage to scrape a living together, you know. Because you don't make a lot of money making knives, that's for sure. You've got to have a kind of a love of wanting to do it, you know. Hi Ollie, and When Lawrence Livermore leased a hydrogen fuel car in 2017, daily commutes would change forever. There were no greenhouse gases that came out. Yeah, it's probably the future of transport, isn't it, hydrogen? If they can, I've seen odd things on hydrogen use on cars. I'm sure it's just the petrochemical industry that is against it. These big companies kind of dictate everything that happens in life, you know. So that's right, Mike, MP Custom Blades. How to lose a load of money quick, start making knives. Yeah, it's right, mate. The first thing you need to do when you start making knives is dig a big hole in your garden and just start shoveling money into it. That's the first, and when you've been doing that for a week, you're then prepared to start making knives. Stephen Owens, fancy making a small oak steel desk? I am designing, don't know if it's your sort of project. Yeah, still do stuff like that, Stephen, yeah. I've made quite a few tabletops with steel legs, and I've been kind of doing some blacksmithing element, should we say, like beating on steel and putting big old steel rivets to kind of finish off the corners of tabletops, you know, really chunky tabletops, 2-inch thick, wrapping a steel band around the corners with a nice kind of distressed hammered forge finish with hammered rivet heads in them. Stuff like that. I love doing things like that, you know. You probably make more money doing that than actually making a damn knife, you know, but it's kind of knife making, there's kind of a draw to it. It just keeps pulling you back, as many knife makers know. So if anybody wants a knife, go to my website, which is lharropknives.com. I'll bring my website up here, which is somewhere here, I don't know where it is. Really, I should get on top of my website. It's diabolical. Don't know where it is, don't even know. Oh, there it is. There's my website. My son is going to manage it for me one day. There it is. I'll take you over there. There's my website. It's probably months since I've updated it now. There was a few scopes I had there that have gone now. I haven't had time to make any stock for the knives, you know. Just a few of the knives I've done, and these, like you know, some of these pictures are way old on this. One of my Hamon blades. That blade came out really stunningly beautiful, that Hamon. As I say, Hamons are very difficult to produce. You can contact me through my website, actually, Stephen. If you go to my website, don't even know how to click off that image now on there. If you go to my website, which is, it's actually losharropatlive.com. That's my website. If you went over to my website, on contact me there is just a box there, and that there's the email address there. You see that, guys? losharropatlive.com. That's my email address. You don't have to go through my website. You can just put that into your message service and go into that. Well, it's been fun, fellas. It's been good, it really has, because as I've said, actually putting 20 minutes of video footage on YouTube will generally take 6 hours, of prep work, editing and uploading. So doing it live, sure, cuts down on a lot of hassle, but obviously I can't show what I'm actually doing, but we'll crack on with the videos anyway. We'll carry on with them, and I will see all you guys soon. Looking into the camera, which is over there. I'll catch you later, fellas. This video is actually, what is it, how long is it now? 1 hour 31 minutes we've been running, so it's going to be a long drawn out video, and I will probably I'll probably only leave it on my channel for a week, and then I'll get rid of it. I'll dump it, because I don't think people are going to have the patience to plough through an hour and a half of waffle. So thanks for watching, fellas, and I will see you quite soon in the next video. I've got 3 projects in the camera, so to speak. I've got forging Damascus. I've got a Bowie I'm working on at the moment, a beautiful Bowie knife. It's just so sexy and evil looking. And the katana I'm working on. I've just finished a set of kitchen knives, although they've now gone to the customer. I didn't really get time to film them. Right, fellas, I'll see you later. Bye for now. Thanks for watching. I've just got to try and figure out how we stuff it now.